Checking in now with Brian Gonzalez with BH and Pivot Bicycles. Brian, tell us a little bit, first off, about Pivot and BH. Not very familiar to a lot of folks in the U.S.
Relatively new to the U.S. market. Both brands in their fourth year at the U.S. BH is actually a 100-year-old company out of Spain. We are BH USA. We're a distributor / manufacturer of the product. Pivot is also in their fourth year here in the U.S. The founder of Pivot Cycles, Chris Kokalis, developed Titus. Everybody knows Titus from back in the day. And so we have partnered with BH Spain to launch their road bike line. And then we have developed new bikes with Pivot.
Well, let's start off here with the road bikes. This is a pretty impressive looking beast.
This is the G5. Last year, AG2R was our Pro Tour team. This bike debuted at the Tour de France, and we were fortunate enough to spend 8 days in yellow. This is the bike that kind of catapulted the new bikes in our road lineup. This is what has put us on the map, so to speak, here in the U.S., being in such a tough market to crack, so many well-established brands, but we were fortunate enough to ride that yellow jersey wave, so to speak.
And what sets this bike apart from everything else on the market?
So the biggest thing, I mean, because whenever you're talking about bikes that are $5,000 and more, they're all good, so you do have to kind of set yourself apart. With our particular bike, the way we've developed this bike and all the technology that's gone into it, we've kind of been able to set it apart from the others. One of the key features of the bike that we were the first to do, is actually a carbon slotted cable stop. We also have the integrated seat mast, which BH was the first to do this. There are other manufacturers that do this. Time does it, Giant does it, Ridley also does it. The biggest difference in theirs versus ours, theirs are our cut to fit mast, where ours is actually a slotted mast, so we don't cut this to fit. Another unique thing is this cable guide here, that we have a channel here that actually adds to the torsional stiffness of the bike, and then we've got a nice place to put the Di2 battery. In this particular setup, the bike does have Di2, Shimano Di2, which is an electronic drivetrain.
Amazing what they can do with bicycle technology these days. Now moving on here to the RC1, tell me about this.
The RC1 was developed from the G5. It's the exact same carbon mold. The layup is different of the carbon. It is a little bit different grade of carbon. You still get the same features of the G5, a little bit softer ride, a little bit more vertically compliant for not your racer type. The G5, on the other hand, is a pure racer's bike. The biggest difference between, other than the carbon layup, is you do not have the integrated seat mast. If you notice, you actually have a seat post in the bike itself. Same exact down tube channel. Same oversized lower bearing, 1.5 to 1.8 inch, which has almost become industry standard. But we were fortunate enough that people have really started to dig this bike quite a bit.
All right, and then moving down here to the Prisma, a little brighter color scheme.
Brighter color scheme. We were excited to bring in green. Some people were a little bit hesitant about it. Our go-to colors have always been red and blue. This year we introduced green and also the black and white, just to kind of give it a little bit of splash. Whenever a consumer walks into the store, we kind of want our bike to stand out from the others, and we figured this is going to be the best way to do it.
And this is sort of your entry level?
It's not quite entry level. There's another bike that steps down below this. This kind of falls in between. The price point of this bike is $23.99 to $31.99, depending on if it's a 105 build or an Ultegra build. Biggest difference between the construction of the bikes, if you notice, obviously no integrated seat mast, nothing. It's a standard round tube, but it is a monocoque design. This is going to have a taller head tube. This is going to be more for your recreational rider, but if you do get the very strong enthusiast, you can actually drop the stem down and become very aggressive with the bike. So all in all, the bike it fills a void that we were kind of missing last year. This is going to enable us to hit another price point, but also give more bang for the buck as far as the bike goes.
All right, well, let's turn from our attentions from the road to the dirt, because we've got a lot of that here in Park City as well. Tell me a little bit about Pivot and this Mach 5.7.
So with the Pivot lineup, this is, like I said, this is our fourth year in the U.S. market. Last year at Interbike, we were fortunate enough to get cross-country bike of the year for the Mach 4 and all-mountain bike of the year for Mach 5. This year we've introduced a new Mach 4 and also a new Mach 5, which this is the Mach 5.7. Little bit different linkage. The shock has got a little bit 20% more compression, so it's a little bit stouter. We've also slackened the head tube angle out just ever so slightly from last year's model. This bike has got 5.7 inches of travel. Last year's model was just a 5-inch travel bike. So this is kind of going to be your all-mountain guy who wants to be able to huck some good stuff, but also kind of have a bike that pedals efficiently. That's the biggest thing on our DW Link bikes. Two other bike manufacturers that use DW Link, Dave Weigel is DW, Ibis, and also Turner. The way we use the application is a little bit different, but it's featured in all of our bikes through our lineup.
Now, coming up in just a couple of weeks, well, maybe a couple of months, is the Red Bull Rampage, and some of those guys are dropping off amazing features. They would need a bike like this.
They would need a bike like this. The Phoenix DH, this is our all-new 8-inch travel mountain bike. I mean, this is a pure downhill bike. You mentioned Red Bull Rampage. We were fortunate enough to bring on board a World Cup team this year. Our marquee rider for this team is Kyle Strait. He is actually racing this bike currently at the World Cup. There are two other racers that race for us. Another one is Mitch Delphs. Last week at the World Cup in Champeray, Mitch placed 14th after crashing at a World Cup event racing our Phoenix DH.
And tell me some of the things that separate this bike from some of the other pure downhill machines.
The biggest difference is there's not another downhill DW bike that's out there. So the DW Link, which you see on the chainstay there, that features the big shiny link that's down at the bottom. That's the DW Link itself. Not so much that exact link, but the application of that. The pedaling efficiency of this bike is unreal. What's really unique about this bike is whenever we were doing the construction of the bike, we actually put a chamber, there's a hole right here where you can actually do the adjustment to the shock itself. People were kind of concerned about how beefy this down tube was, but we did leave an opening here to get access to the shock. All in all, the bike can do quite a bit as far as obviously the travel. Another key feature that we've got is this rear derailleur, or not, it's a dropout. It's a replaceable dropout. You can actually change the length of the chainstay. You can also change the height of the bottom bracket by switching out this shiny piece right here. So there's also another pretty unique feature in the head tube. The head tube actually features a new headset that allows the rider to go plus or minus a half degree up to 1.375 degrees, changing the head tube angle ever so slightly. Depending on racetrack conditions, sometimes they want it a little bit steeper, or sometimes they want it a little bit more slack, so that headset will allow them to do that.
Wow, that's a pretty amazing piece of machinery. If people want more info on Pivot or BH, where do they go?
bhbikes.net and pivotcycles.com.
Brian, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having us out here at Bike DealerCamp.